Hey guys, welcome back to another sports stuff video. Today, we'll be talking about the Las Vegas Raiders and their offseason plan pre-NFL Combine. So again, after the NFL Combine, you're going to see probably about 4 weeks in a row of me just boom, 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 shooting these things out before the NFL draft, getting the offseason plans ready, and after the draft, grading everyone's offseason plan after all the hires, all the signings, and all the draft picks are done. But Las Vegas Raiders, I believe this is now pick 6 of the NFL draft we're on right now. So hope you guys do enjoy. Let's get into this video. So before we start into the actual video, I did not make a slide yet again for the new head coach of the Las Vegas Raiders. That is Pete Carroll. I did have a video earlier this week. Go down to my channel. I posted a video about Pete Carroll, but I'll give a brief talking about it. I think Pete Carroll hiring makes a lot of sense. I think it's one of the best hires of the NFL offseason so far. He can come in, stabilize the franchise, Super Bowl experience, national champion. Like he's a winner. He is a winner. One of the best winning percentages of active coaches who are free agents. So the fact that you got him on your team to help stabilize the offense, stabilize the defense, stabilize the culture, I love it. So A+ for me. But Pete Carroll's the head coach. That's how I kind of built this offseason plan video around. So starting off, we have $92 million before we do any cuts or trades. But let's go into our cuts and trades. So first off, we're going to be cutting Gardner Minshew. Gardner Minshew this past year had 2,000 yards, 9 touchdowns, and 10 interceptions. He was benched for Aiden O'Connell throughout the season. Multiple times he was benched for Aiden O'Connell. So I just don't see the new GM and new head coach keeping him. New GM being Tyler Spittick and new head coach being Pete Carroll. I don't think Gardner Minshew really fits the vibe or the play style that he wants out of a quarterback. So I think they're going to cut him, stay at $9 million. He only had 5 big-time throws, the 10 turnover-worthy plays. So that's a god-awful ratio. Every time he threw the ball deep, he had more turnover-worthy plays than big-time throws. That's not what you want out of a quarterback. You can get younger and better at the QB to compete. The AFC West, it's not a division for a mediocre quarterback, and that's exactly what Gardner Minshew is. You need a quarterback that you can either build upon or a quarterback that you know is already good. So cutting him, you save $9 million. That's the main reason to cut him. If he was only like $4 million, I'd probably keep him. Quarterback competition. But for $9 million, I can go and get someone who's better, who fits my scheme a little bit better as well. Next, we have Max Crosby. I'm going to be trading Max Crosby. Max Crosby last year had 25 tackles, 8 sacks, and 54 pressures. To me, he's a tier 1 pass rusher. Unfortunately, he has no guaranteed money left on his contract. And if I'm the Raiders, we know we're not ready to win right now. And said recently that convos will be had about his guaranteed money on his contract. How he wants more money, wants a new contract. And he said, and I quote, "All I want to do is win. Things will be discussed." The Raiders ain't winning nothing. Let's be honest here, guys. If Max Crosby wants to win, he has to go somewhere else. So I made up a trade package for Max Crosby. That would be Las Vegas gets a 2025 Detroit first with number 28 overall. Their next year first round pick. They this year 4th for 195 and a next year 4th for Detroit getting Max Crosby. No other picks are being traded. Max Crosby, you trade him, you save $22.8 million against the cap space, and you get 2 firsts and 2 fourths. I think that's a great pick for the Raiders to do. You now have 2 first round picks of this year, 2 next year, and 2 fourths both years to resupply this roster with talent. Again, obviously, it's gonna be controversial when you trade Max Crosby. You draft him in the 5th round. He's developed, become a tier 1 pass rusher for you. But I think trade him somewhere, get the most assets you can back. Otherwise, he might say, "I want to, trade me right now," and you lose all the leverage. Right now, you have leverage, right? Detroit can now give him a new contract, more guaranteed money. Right now, you have all the leverage because Max Crosby has not publicly said, "I want out," and I don't think Max Crosby will. I don't think he will say publicly he wants out. I think it will be behind closed doors. Jason Spittick, Pete Carroll, and Max Crosby will sit down and say, "Hey, Max, we're not within the next 3 years winning a Super Bowl. Not going to happen. We're going to try, but if you want to win a Super Bowl guaranteed within the next 3 years, or at least compete to win a Super Bowl in the next 3 years, you need to go somewhere else. Detroit, they need a pass rusher. We'll trade you to Detroit for 2 firsts and 2 fourths. I think they both say, yep, let's just do it. Let's move on. So Max Crosby, we trade him. We get an extra 1st round pick and 4th round pick this year, and $23 million in cap space. Restructures, I'm going to be restructuring Christian Wilkins. Christian Wilkins, you could restructure. Save $20.5 million. I did not do it, though, right? With that Max Crosby trade thing that we did, I decided, you know what? let's not restructure him. But if this is something that Jason Spittick does, I can understand why. Because if you want to go all in, let's say for Sam Darnold, you trade Max Crosby, you restructure Christian Wilkins, you sign Sam Darnold, your cap space doesn't actually move, right? You sign to a $40 million over 3-year contract, 3 for 120. Boom, your contract doesn't, your cap space doesn't move. So cool. Or you do what I do and you don't actually restructure the contract. So that's an option that they have to restructure, but I did not take it in this specific mock draft or a mock offseason plan. So without the Christian Wilkins restructure, you have $124 million in re-signing money. So first you're re-signing is Trayvon Merrick. Last year had 73 tackles, 2 interceptions, 12 pressures, and 29 run stops. He's a do-it-all hybrid linebacker safety. He was drafted as a safety, but really has, grown into a linebacker role in the last 2 years. Las Vegas finally found their chess piece, a guy that can move around all over the defense and let them, roam free. And that's Trayvon Merrick for this defense. The new defensive coordinator will have someone to move around the board. That's something that once you lose Max Crosby, having someone else that you can rely on to really make big plays and, move all around the field, that could be Trayvon Merrick for them. So I decided to give him a 4-year, $33 million deal, $21.5 million guaranteed. That is 65% of it is guaranteed. And I based the contract off of Josey Jewell and Kevin Byard last year. Josey Jewell linebacker, Kevin Byard a safety. I kind of, averaged out and, like the $5 million signing bonus, that's from Josey Jewell. But the base salary is from Kevin Byard. The guaranteed money is, a hybrid of them both. But yeah, 65%, exactly where I like to be when I do these contracts, is around 65%. So Trayvon Merrick, get him for $33 million. I think that's a great steal of a linebacker safety hybrid contract. Next, we have Clavon Chaisson. This year, 20 tackles, 6 sacks, 1 forced fumble, and 29 pressures. He had a great bounce back year in Las Vegas. To me, he replaces Crosby in the lineup. He's now the 1A pass rusher as of right now. Again, as of right now, once you trade Max Crosby, I would re-sign Clavon Chaisson, and he's now the 1A pass rusher. Gives him a chance to start again. Give him, it's something that you can definitely do. Give him a chance. Say, hey, last year you played really well. We're going to give you this contract. It's going to be a lot less money than Max Crosby and less snaps than Max Crosby had. You had 6 sacks and 29 pressures. Now let's give you Max Crosby snap count. Can you reproduce it? So give him a 2-year, $19.5 million contract, 13.25 guaranteed. That is 67% of it guaranteed. Again, in that window of 63 to 68% guaranteed is where I like to stay. And you can cut him after 1 year, and he saves $6 million in the cap space after. So it's really a 1-year, $9.25 million contract. And for someone who had 6 sacks, 29 pressures as a rotated edge, I think that's definitely worth the contract. I mean, Ogbo Okoronkwo is making like $9 or $10 million on the Browns. That's exactly what he did when he was in Texas. So I think Clavon Chaisson, give him this contract. Maybe he can blossom. Maybe he has another 10, 11 sack season. Because guess what? In 2026, that's still a contract at that point. But again, if he has a down year, you cut him after 1 year, you get $6 million in cap space back. The next we'll be cutting is Charles Snowden, another guy on the defensive line. 23 tackles, 2 sacks, 16 run stops. He's a solid rotation D tackle. He's a run stuffer. He only costs $1 million because he's an exclusive rights free agent. He's a UDFA that's proven to belong in the NFL. Grabbing a guy like Charles Snowden, keeping him on the team, it shows the guys in the locker room that even if you're in previous regimes, if you're an undrafted free agent, doesn't matter. If you play well for this team, you are going to be here. And I think for $1 million to get a guy who started for you most of this last year and who played pretty well in the run, I like that. Again, he may not be a starter this year, right? We're going to see later on if I sign or draft someone, but at least at minimum be that rotating run-stopping D tackle. And maybe even give him a real contract. Give him a 2 or 3 year contract. Don't even do an ERFA. Just give him an actual contract. But I'm going to tender him for $1 million, Charles Snowden. So going into the free agency, we spent $20 million in re-signing fees. We're at 109 for free agency. What do we sign first? My first signing is going to be Javon Holland. Javon Holland, safety from the Miami Dolphins. 48 tackles, 0 interceptions, and 14 run stops this past year. To me, top 10 free safety in the league. He has great range, great speed, great down the field coverage as well. He's very athletic, and he shores up your secondary issues, right? You have Jack Jones, Nate Hobbs, and a bunch of older safeties, right? Marcus Epps is a safety back there. Javon Holland, put him at free safety. You now have a cap at the top of your defense to where guys are not going to be able to have free run down the sideline and with no coverage, or breaking across the middle in a post route. Javon Holland is seizing that up. So I gave him a 4-year, $63.5 million contract, $4.5 million guaranteed. That is 63% guaranteed. Again, Pete Carroll loves safeties. He loves good safeties. So for me, Javon Holland, he fills that, I'm not going to say Cam Chancellor. It's more of the Earl Thomas role is what he's going to play. Hard-hitting, free safety who is rangy and will take guys all the way down the field if he has to and hawk them down. That's my role. I see him as an Earl Thomas for Pete Carroll. And again, very good player. He's going to get a massive contract this offseason. Why not be it in Las Vegas? And he gets a team back up with Christian Wilkins. A connection there. Christian Wilkins can help get him on the team. Because of everything I've seen on social media, Javon Holland was not happy when Christian Wilkins left. He posted on his, he commented on one of his posts, like, I miss you, brother. So I think it's a very real chance that Javon Holland and Christian Wilkins could end up on the same team again this year. Next, we have Chris Barnes, a linebacker. Chris Barnes had 20 tackles, 2 sacks, and 12 run stops in Arizona. He was a rotation linebacker for Arizona. Same thing, he was a rotation linebacker for Green Bay, and I believe also for San Francisco. But he's played well the last few years. Whenever I did Madden rebuilds, Chris Barnes always ended up being a starter for me because you get him for dirt cheap and he plays really well. But I like Chris Barnes in real life. He's getting, he can finally get those starting minutes. I think he's definitely deserving of. Do-it-all linebacker, good in coverage, good in run stopping. Not the most athletic dude, but he doesn't let a lot get past him when it comes to the run or the pass. 2-year, $11 million contract, $7.5 million guaranteed. That's 68%. You now have Chris Barnes, Javon Merrick, more of that athletic dude. Chris Barnes, the hard-nosed hitter that's not gonna let stuff get past him. Next, we have DJ Reed, the outside corner from the New York Jets. This year had 55 tackles, 0 interceptions, 18 run stops, and 7 pass breakups. He is a great starting boundary corner. And for me, what the Raiders are truly missing is that tier 1 great starting outside boundary corner. He's been shining in Ahmad Sauce Gardner's shadow. DJ Reed, before Sauce Gardner got there, was their number 1. Now it's Sauce, who's going to get a big contract from New York. So I don't see them re-signing both DJ Reed and Sauce Gardner. So I think DJ Reed is going to sadly get lost in that deal. And that means Vegas can capitalize on that. You can see him getting all-pro nods at cornerback 1. If he does get to the Raiders, he's going to get all-pro nods because everyone's going to realize, the reason he hasn't been getting nods recently is because you have Sauce Gardner, who is, yes, in my opinion, a little better than DJ Reed. But DJ Reed in his own, he's very good. And it helps elevate your cornerback room. You now have DJ Reed as your number 1 corner, Jack Jones as your number 2 corner, with Nate Hobbs or whoever else you want to throw in there, any of the young guys that they drafted last year in that slot corner role. But DJ Reed, I love him. I gave him a 3-year, $41 million contract, $32 million guaranteed. That is 78% guaranteed. I think it'd take a little more than usual to get DJ Reed to come to Las Vegas. He's had a lot of losing in New York. Usually when guys constantly lose in their first stop, they sign with a better team to try and compete and get their love of the game back. So DJ Reed, I think you have to give him a little bit more guaranteed money, and he'll be able to sign with you to be your outside corner. Next, we have Najee Harris. Najee Harris this last year had 11,000 yards. Wow, 1,043 yards, 6 touchdowns, and 30 10-plus yard runs. Najee, this is gonna sound really mean. He might be the worst running back to always have 1,000 yards in his career. He's consistent. That's what I'm saying. Run game needs a more consistent guy. You honestly had Alexander Madison, right? Amir Abdullah as your running backs this past season. That's not good enough, right? We obviously know Pete Carroll loves his physical running backs. I think Najee Harris is a very physical running back. Again, not the best running back in the world, but he's a consistent, hard-nosed runner who can help the young quarterback or old quarterback, whichever one you do, with a better run game. So I gave him a 3-year, $25.5 million contract, $19.5 million of it guaranteed. That is 76% guaranteed. But again, it helps elevate your run game. We see what Saquon Barkley does for the Eagles. We see what Derrick Henry does for the Ravens. Those guys are better. But when you have a good running back and a good system who fits with a really good offensive line, they have a really solid offensive line from DJ Glaze all the way to Colton Miller. They've really invested in the offensive line the last few years. Really good offensive line we saw Amir Abdullah and Alexander Madison do really well in that run game. But Najee Harris will do even better. He might have his best yards year in his career. Don't know if he most touchdowns in his career, but I think he'll have his highest yards if he goes to the Raiders in this iteration. Then finally, I'm going to be signing Bobby Wagner. It was going to happen, guys. 95 tackles, 3 sacks, 1 forced fumble, and 49 run stops this past year. Dude is untouched by time. It reminds me of Aaron Donald, how he's never fallen off. This dude is the exact same dude from 2019, 2020. It's been 5 or 6 years. He is the exact same player. He may not be the pass rushing threat he once was, but when it comes to run stopping, man, he's really good. He can come in, he helps Pete establish the culture, just like he did in Washington, and I still think it might return to Washington. I had said that. Might return to Washington, honestly. He's playing really well there. The team likes him. He likes it there. There's a very high chance he stays. But if I'm Bobby Wagner, I left Seattle because Pete Carroll wasn't my coach. Pete Carroll's a coach in the NFL now again. I love Pete Carroll. From all the reports I've read before doing this video, they're on good terms. Like, just like how Russell Wilson and Pete Carroll got together and squashed any beef. It looks like Bobby Wagner never had beef with Pete Carroll. So Pete Carroll gets Bobby Wagner, doesn't even need to start the entire time because you have Chris Barnes, you have Trevon Merrick, you have someone you could draft. Bobby Wagner can come in, be the locker room piece who comes in for 30 snaps a game, gets 80 tackles in a season, and just this is the last year of his career. $1 million, $6.5 million fully guaranteed. I think that's something that both Bobby Wagner and Pete Carroll would be interested in. Now we're heading into the draft. We have $74 million. As I always say, when I'm doing the offseason free agency signings, I always focus on guys that either will start or be high-end rotation players. So $74 million, you minus $9 million for your draft picks. Although I have a lot of draft picks in this that's coming up. So maybe like 13 to 14 million. So I'll just say you have $60 million to go out and get more free agents. That is a starting quarterback. That is, maybe another wide receiver, another boundary wide receiver. Maybe that's another corner or another safety. But I didn't want to sign too many guys because I think they have to enter a small rebuild. So, because we're entering a small rebuild, here's what I did. I did a draft day trade with the Las Vegas Raiders from number 6 overall to number 2 with the Cleveland Browns. Because I do believe that if Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders goes number 1 overall, the Cleveland Browns are going to trade out of number 2 and get as much draft capital as possible. So I traded 2 firsts, 2 thirds, and tight end Michael Mayer, who's no longer needed because you have Brock Bowers. You now have number 2 and 165. So 2 firsts, 2 thirds, and Michael Mayer for number 2 overall and a 4th round pick. I think this is very possible if the board falls in a specific way. And I think that it's very likely that the board falls in a very specific way. So this is my draft day trade for the Raiders. They trade up, they lose their thirds in 2 years and first for 2 years, and they trade Michael Mayer. So this is the draft. So obviously they do the draft day trade. They trade up from number 6 and number 2, and they draft Shedeur Sanders. Shedeur is an elite middle of the field striker. He's very decisive. Obviously some people's number 1 quarterback. He's my number 2 quarterback, but it's 1A, 1B. It's not like it's 1A and C3 or 3C. Like, it is very, very close. So he's elite middle of the field striker, really good at that, 0 to the 15-yard range. He's very decisive. He can make plays with his legs and extend plays. He had a 14 touchdown to 1 interception ratio on passes over 20 yards. So not only is he very deadly accurate from 0 to 15, but over 20, he had 14 touchdowns, only 1 interception with, let's all be honest, not the best wide receiver core outside of Travis Hunter. This offense is built for a chain mover with big playability at quarterback, whether it's Brock Bowers, Trey Tucker, Jacoby Myers, it doesn't matter. Najee Harris now. I think this is a guy that the Raiders would like, right? A guy who can make big plays with his legs and big plays with his arm, but also just be decisive. Then in that trade for Max Crosby, a first, a 6th, a first, and a 4th, with number 28, you get from the Detroit Lions, you get Jahdae Barron from Texas. Jahdae Barron is one of my favorite corners in this class. He was great all year long. And to be honest with you, this corner class could have 5 or 6 first rounders. And to me, Jahdae Barron is among the best. He's a great press man corner. 5 interceptions and 0 touchdowns against most teams' number 1 wide receiver. The only guy that really cooked him was Jeremiah Smith in the national championship. That was Jahdae Barron's worst game. And that's saying something because he still played well. But it is Jeremiah Smith is just that not in the national championship, in the playoffs. That was like what? That was the second round. That wasn't even yeah, I'm sorry, not in the national championship. All right, when they played them, Jahdae Barron got cooked. I ain't gonna lie, he got cooked. But what not as bad as some people thinking. But 5 interceptions, 0 touchdowns this year, being the press man corner for most teams, number 1 wide receiver. I think Jahdae Barron could come in and be an outside corner. So your cornerback room is now DJ Reed, Jahdae Barron, Jack Jones, and Nate Hobbs, and a bunch of other young corners that you drafted last year. But you now leave the first round with your franchise corner and a franchise quarterback. That is a very good first round exit. Then at number 37, I'm grabbing Walter Nolan, the D tackle from Ole Miss. Nolan, he's a great all-around D tackle, amazing run stopper with high pass rusher ability, 6 sacks with like 40 run stops or something crazy like that at Ole Miss. A lot of people have him as a fringe first rounder. Yeah, I see why. Really good build. Ole Miss and South Carolina D linemen this year are plentiful, and he might be the best D tackle of all of them. He can slot in year 1 as a starter next to Christian Wilkins. And we saw in the past draft that a lot of teams are starting to value that D tackle position. You know, we saw last year in the second round, every team got a D tackle. There was a run on there were guys that I had ranked outside the top 100 that went in the second round because D tackle was getting a run on. So I think Walter Nolan comes in. The Raiders need a D tackle next to Christian Wilkins. Again, Christian Wilkins, good run stopper, really good pass rusher. Walter Nolan, the opposite, really good run stopper, okay pass rusher. They kind of play off each other. Then number 73, I think get another starter in Demetrius Knight from South Carolina. Great starting level linebacker, 64 tackles in coverage and run stops. He started the year off poor, but as the weeks went on, usually after week 5, he became a dominant linebacker. Only 2 years of starting snaps, and both years was a really good linebacker. He can fight for a starting job year 1 in the 3rd round. So him and Chris Barnes, I think, would be the 2 guys fighting for that starting job. And then it'd be Trevon Merrick playing that safety linebacker hybrid with Bobby Wagner. But Demetrius Knight has all the tools to fight to be a starter day 1. And that's something you want to take in the 3rd round. Because again, I think there is a chance that he beats out whoever's in front of him to become the starter. Then at 106, another starter I see happening is Jalen Noel from Iowa State. Shador would love Noel. Just straight up, he'd love him. He might be the best pure deep threat guy in the draft. He uses his speed and his 5'11 build to get separation. He plays a lot bigger than 5'11. I thought he was easily 6'2", 6'3" when I was watching some film. But Jalen Noel is amazing. He's just amazing. He's 5'11", 200 pounds, not super undersized, but again, he plays bigger. He adds explosiveness to the wide receiver room. And this wide receiver room right now is a bunch of slot receivers and possession guys. Add a dude who can truly stretch the field in Jalen Noel that you kind of lost Devontae Adams. Then at 143, Kyle Monange. I just watched a video how to say his name. Kyle Monange from Rutgers. I'm going to say Kyle. Kyle from Rutgers. I'm butchering his name. I feel bad. He's primarily an outside zone running back. Not much production when doing gut punches up the middle of the offensive line. So I don't see him as an end zone dude, but I see him more as an open field rusher. Has really good open field eye ability as well. Watch Rutgers' game against, I think it was week 10. I don't know what team it was, but I think it was week 10 when I was going through the numbers. He had a really good game, like a really good open field game. Back-to-back 1,200-yard season. I can see him being used year 1 like Jalen Warren and Najee Harris were in Pittsburgh, where Kyle is the open field and pass catcher with Najee Harris punching it in for a touchdown. That's what I kind of see year 1 what Kyle can play. Then at 165, Gavin Upton Stout from Western Kentucky. Again, a safety I really like. His level of play is a little worrying, right? His worst game this season was when he played the only real good college football team in Alabama, and the rest of the teams were not great, and he played really well against them. But the minute he plays one of the better teams, he struggles. Overall, he's a consistent run stuffer, consistent coverage guy. He does have some question marks with his tackling, but I do see a role year 1 for Upton Stout, right? Like when you're in the 5th, 6th, and 7th round, you're looking for guys who can either play a role year 1 or develop in maybe year 3, year 4 can play for you. And at 180, Luke Lackey is one of those dudes I just mentioned. He is my Michael Mayer replacement in the early 6 rounds. Average run blocker, but he's surprisingly a good pass blocker, right? So when it's run sets, I wouldn't have him out there. But when you're like, hey, we could either throw the ball or Luke Lackey can just block for us. That's where he's valuable. He's valuable in that role. He did most of his damage as a check down or a screen guy. Think David Njoku, how he constantly gets those screen passes. That's where Luke Lackey mostly got his catches at Iowa. He's 6'6", 250. That's hard to pass up at tight end. So he could be an end zone target for Shedeur Sanders. Then at 195, Anthony Belton from North Carolina State. He's a developmental tackle. I'll kick him out the left tackle because Delmar Glaze is at right tackle. So Anthony Belton can develop underneath Colton Miller. O-line is pretty solid as of now. You don't need much improvement, so he's just a developmental swing tackle guy in case of injury. He struggles in run blocking, but he's a good pass blocker. Again, 6'6", 336, another size you can't pass up. He has a solid base and a good first step when it comes to the offensive line. Colin Oliver at 214. He had a limited production this year due to a season-ending injury. He was having another great start to a year. I think he had like 3 sacks in 2 games with like 10 pressures. So he averages 28 pressures a year. So he's getting off to probably his best career start. But he's gotten better at run defending every year. I do worry about his recovery from what I believe was an ACL tear. But at 214, an edge that consistently puts up pressure and is becoming a better run defender, I'm willing to take that at 214. Then at 218, I'm giving Raheem Sanders, another running back from South Carolina. I'm completely reshaping the running back room. He had 675 yards after contact. He's not truly, in my opinion, a home run hitter, but he's really good at the line of scrimmage of breaking the first tackler. In this class, again, not a home run hitter. I see more as a goal line red zone guy, kind of like how I see Najee Harris, with Kyle being the open space runner. He doesn't have the best field vision, but it's workable. Again, I like him at the line of scrimmage, how he's able to get the first step and get a couple of yards. But for me, Raheem Sanders, red zone, and Kyle is the open field running back. There's 2 different roles that they play. Then finally at 214, Tyler Shaw from Louisville I don't know how to pronounce his name, I'm not gonna lie to you. But Tyler from Louisville. He's a pass-first quarterback with the ability to run. I think he had 30 rushes for, I don't know, what was it? It was 4.4 yards a carry, though, at quarterback. So I see him as a backup to Shedeur because I think he can, he has a really strong arm, really big playability with a leg, with legs to make a first down happen. So he's kind of like a baby Shedeur Sanders, to a lesser level. He can run the system. This is the first year he truly started. He didn't throw a negative turnover ratio at all this year at any game. So, he played the most. He played against the best competition, and he still did not let down his team at all this year. He has a good deep ball, good running ability, good scramble ability. So again, that's why I say I think he could back up Shedeur Sanders and run the same system. So if in break in case of emergency, you can still run the same offense with Tyler they do with Shedeur. But that's my mock draft, right? You get your franchise cornerback, your franchise quarterback, a good D tackle, linebacker, wide receiver, 2 good running backs, offensive line help, safety help. Like, I like this draft for the Raiders. And in the free agency, I think it really does fix everything. And it kind of asks what Pete Carroll likes to do. So if you guys enjoy, please like, comment, subscribe, hit the notification bell to be notified when I post next. And again, go down into my description, click my link tree, follow me on TikTok. I'm posting nearly daily. And I'll see you guys later. Peace and bye.